We must stop the terror. Now watch this drive.
Why are you gay? You are gay.
This is great. This is wonderful. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Uncle Hack Podcast. Happy you're here with us today. Unfortunately, no emails to cover. If you got an issue, a gripe, something positive to say, something negative to anything to say at all, please email me, unclehack@dangercast.tv. And I prefer a voice recording. I want to hear it. And we'll play those at the beginning of the episode. I think that'd be a fun way to open up the show. So that way maybe it gravitates into, we come together as Canadians, as North Americans, the world. I don't know. This is the biggest podcast in Alberta. Anyways, upcoming dates. Your boy's heading south. Back to the dirty. November 7th, this Friday in Lethbridge, Alberta. November 8th in Medicine Hat. And then it is Dallas, Texas with Alex Stein on November 23rd. November 29th in Fort Worth. That will just be Sam Brett and I. December 7th in Red Deer. December 6th in Olds. January 10th in Hinton, Alberta. January 17th in Drumheller. January 23rd in Athabasca. January 24th in Whitecourt. February 7th in Thunder Bay. February 28th, Pictou, Nova Scotia. March 7th, Selkirk, Manitoba. March 13th in Windsor. April 17th and 18th, Kelowna, BC. Tickets available, dangercatshop.com. Merch available as well there on the website. Let's get into personal matters that I feel like could possibly apply to your life as well. Your boy's back. I went back to a martial arts studio. I went to the Dojo MMA in St. Albert. My longtime training partner back in the day, very good friend of mine, Sean Locke, the head coach there and owner of the gym, opened one up. If you guys are in the Edmonton area looking for a place to train, highly recommend it. I've always had a phenomenal experience throughout my fight career training alongside Sean. He's been a wonderful friend and also a tremendous coach over those years. Always kept me very focused, very driven, and was always down to train. And it seems that he is cultivating that culture at his gym in St. Albert. But yeah, can't say enough. Went there Monday and Wednesday, trained twice in 1 week. First time, 9 years, hitting the mats. It was great. I got to say, used to dislike jiu-jitsu, and I don't know what it is in my older years here, but thoroughly enjoy it now over kickboxing. I tried kicking some pads, and, cardio's not there, which is bringing me to my next point, that I went down a little trip down memory lane. I was looking at some old, very, very old edits. I was looking actually at the first ever compilation video I put together of me and my friends, or, just outside of my friend circle. All these videos that we had of us doing silly things while we were hammered. And it is fun to go back and look upon and have a chuckle about those times and those memories. And it just like... it's something hilarious about now is like where, the gentleman in that video, I'm not going to out anybody because, they're in professional careers now. They don't do what I do. So I think it's like extremely disingenuous to rope them into my horse shit for no reason whatsoever other than shouting my friends out on a podcast that millions of people listen to, But looking back on it, the culture that the brand had cultivated in that time is quite interesting. Is a lot of younger gents were attracted to it because it embodied what we were about in that time. And now, being the age that I am, I'm turning 35 this month. It is it's funny to look back upon because those memories, you know, they're going to last forever due to the internet, unfortunately. But, you know, the immaturity that I had at that time, I'm not saying that I've grown a lot, but to look back upon those events and the things that we were getting up to is quite hilarious. It's just young and free, where now I feel like there's an obligation as, like, you know, a middle-aged guy. Again, we went over this last episode of, like, there is a time in your life where you have to accept that you're not cool. You're not going to be the front runner on what the youth are going to like, you know? So that's what's funny about a lot of these, like, influencers is, like, the end of the line is coming. And you can see it, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel is becoming smaller and smaller, and this fame and glory is going to dissipate at some point in time. So what do you turn to? Do you go into politics? Do you just accept fate and ride off into the sunset and just, you know, salute your past and be like, I'm on to bigger and better things, or if not worse? Do you go in a direction that's, like, counterintuitive to a great life? I don't know, but I do know that there becomes a time where you have to accept that in your 30s, you're not going to be influential to the youth. They have their own influences. They have their own pop culture that they tap into. And it's just like, when we do so much to fight age. We do so much. We dye our hair so we can look younger. We get injections in our face so the wrinkles don't appear. We want to fly to Turkey to get hair plugs, you know? And, like, I'm balding. I'm getting old. I'm balding. I'm not, thankfully I'm not fat. That's a positive that I have going for me, but I've now accepted the fact that these things are happening to me, and it's just nature. That's just what's going to happen. It was going to happen regardless. No matter how much I wanted to fight it, it's just going to happen, right? So I think just the acceptance of oneself. You know, I'm not a hot guy. I'm never going to be a hot guy. I'm not going to be the guy that, you know, nobody's putting me on a magazine and be like, wow, the sexiest man of 2026. It's not going to happen. Those cards were never in my deck, and I'm willing to accept that. At a point in time, you know, when you're younger and you're insecure in your own body, and you're like, oh man, I wish more girls were attracted to me. And then, you know, you try and change that, and you try and fight that. But I just, like, maybe now I've come to the point where the heavy metal still like it. The heavy women, you know, certain factors. I'm not really into the obese, you know, you'll be thick, sure, whatever. Heavy cans. You know, heavy ass. Killing already. But you get what I mean. The heavy drinking, though. You know, I think I've talked about this a few times on here. I've slowed down on the boozing. In fact, it's very seldom where I'll drink more than, like, 5 beers in a night. And I've accepted that. But I've also, you know, I've created this culture around the brand that involves heavy drinking, right? So I think that maybe there's a dawn of a new era. And now that I've went back into a martial arts gym and started training, you know, I'm going to try and go as much as I possibly can. I forgot how much I enjoy that, right? And that's where this sparked this rebellious spirit. There is something nice when you're learning a new skill, especially when it's within, you know, your own self and your own determination to just continue it. And it's been a long time since I've been in an environment like that. I forgot how much I liked it. I've avoided it for a very long time due to the same reason I've been kind of avoiding boozing, you know. And then, like, maybe I'm sorry if this episode is coming across like it's a therapy session, but maybe it helps you in your own path as well. But I noticed this, like, I avoided drinking for a long time because I became a person that I thoroughly disliked. And it was due to a lot of reasons of, just being insecure. And I found that it was the only way that I could really like relate with people. So I'd have to be, and then you got to go to the extremes of it, right? And to be the party animal. So then you at least you're like, oh, he's here. It's going to be a good party. And like, it's just self-destruction at the end of the day. And that's when I found martial arts, at a very influential, part of my life. And I walked into the Canadian Martial Arts Center, actually in Lethbridge, Alberta, started training under Lee Mean, and it just gripped me. It captured me. And I found myself wanting to be more a part of that environment than the party guy, or, like obviously we would go out and as a team, or, celebrate a win if you won your fight, or you got to drink a loss away. But it was never just like a staple of the culture, but it was a part of it. And the same reason like I've been avoiding drinking is because I don't want to slip into that mindset of like, oh, I got to have 1,000 beers tonight and be the drunkest guy imaginable, and then pull my cock out and start pissing on things that aren't meant to be pissed on. So I've avoided the martial arts gym because I know that my personality is when I find something I like, I got to go to the furthest end of it. Is like I went in with pure intention to take a fight. I started training and I was like, this is very hard. It's good. It keeps me out of trouble, keeps me away from some of the things that I would get up to in the past. And then that was part of the reason I've kind of avoided a gym. I thought it would spark again that I can't go into these places because I know that the idea in my head is I got to fight again, right? But I went in and you know what? It's just nice to enjoy a hobby. And so I guess with that being said is I'm hopefully going to motivate some of you to go and experience something different that, I understand like many of you have children or you have lives outside of, raising your kids you have a life that involves raising your kids outside of it. What are you talking about? And it can be difficult to find time to participate in some of these activities. But maybe it's just like an hour here and there. You go and work out, or you're getting yourself in shape, or you introduce maybe some more healthier options to eat at home. Because I find that I felt great after leaving the gym, and hopefully that's for some of you, And with that being said, I'm gonna promote it a little more of like getting in shape. I know I've said it in the past and I've kind of fell off because it felt like, you're kind of grandstanding about like, look at me, where it's like, I'd rather encourage people to try different things and get out there and move a little bit. Don't allow, these vices to capture you and distort your reality. And take time away from your life that could be allocated to something much more positive, I guess is what I'm trying to get at here. And I know that probably sounds quite
Come on.
Oh. Thank you. But I think it's one of those topics that we're a little timid to talk about as gentlemen, as the type of dude that would embody the spirit of a danger cat. You don't want to speak in this manner because it can come across as like not only grandioso, but kind of gay, It does come across when you're like trying to be like, listen, man, you just got to get up off your ass. And sometimes you need some tough love to do so, but to motivate you to take your first step in the right direction. And if it helps, it helps. Every now and then I'll probably bring it up. But with that being said, I know that we like to talk about the news around here. And let's get into our first article of the day. This is very, this comes from Canada's top general. Now, Let's get this up. There we go. Now, the military now is apologizing to Canadian Armed Forces members for racial discrimination, which I find interesting that the apologies there. And I know like you're training these guys to, and ladies, I guess, to be combat ready. And again, I'm not a soldier by any means. I've never thrown on the camo and did basic training. Oh, gotta get rid of these. I'm getting the hiccups. Pardon me. We're just gonna get rid of those. Now, I've never participated in any of that. I've never even, the idea of joining the military has never even crossed my mind, let alone, going through something like this. But when Canada's top general, what's her name? Jenny Carney, we've spoken about her before, comes out and this is, at a time where recruitment levels are at an all-time low. So you're kind of, like, does this add to morale? Could this be a conversation that takes place behind closed doors, within, top ranks? Or does it need to be publicized? I ask myself that because the morale of the country is already at an all-time low. You ask Canadians how they feel about the state of the nation. Most of them are going to have a negative review about how this Waffle House is being ran. Essentially, that's what this is. It's just chaos all around us. Meanwhile, there's like one table that's trying to mind their own business that could potentially be you. But you're drug into this nonsense. And let's just hear what she has to say. This is a 2-minute video. We're gonna trudge through it together. And
message.
Speaking personally,
the military's top soldier delivering an emotional message.
Speaking personally, what I have learned has broken my heart.
On behalf of the Canadian Armed Forces, General Jenny Carney issuing a formal apology.
I apologize to every CAF member, veteran who experienced racism, discrimination, and harassment. And I acknowledge we failed you.
A move to confront decades of harm she says was allowed to fester in the ranks.
I felt a sense of relief, especially, those that were crying in the room. And you really could feel that this was a history in the making.
See, miigwech.
But after watching the apology, retired Corporal Melvin Swan isn't sure yet.
What's important is, where do we go from here?
More than 30 years ago, he won his human rights case against the military and has been pushing ever since for it to be a more inclusive place.
The military was my saving grace. That's where I went to deal with, get away from sexual abuse in residential school, boarding school, and it was my way out. But at the same time, I realized that that system was not perfect.
Racism destroyed us for several years.
For Reuben Coward, this apology comes after a class action lawsuit he helped launch, claiming years of racism that he calls horrific.
I'm not going to be comfortable until I see real change. And so whatever that looks like, what it's going to look like to me, is when nobody continues to call me and say, Reuben, can you help me? I'm dealing with racism. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I want to commit suicide. When that stops, I'll smile again.
Well, the joy of that, Reuben, is we've kindly offered the MAIDS program to a lot of our Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans. So the only option really out is the government killing you and sending your organs, to very wealthy businessman to the Chinese, these are the options that you have, and this apology is also coming from somebody who allegedly abandoned her post in Afghanistan and was trying to get some rugs on a chopper. Now, keep in mind that this is allegedly, okay? Allegedly. I know the media has come forward and said that this is all lies, but we all know what the media. And now, like, you hear these things. Does this apology do anything? It seems like this Trudeau era of these like fake apologies. It's kind of like getting caught. You get caught cheating, you get caught stealing, and you get caught, doing something that you shouldn't. And I'm guilty of this too. And you just like your parachute that you pull is just like, I'm sorry, I didn't. Sometimes you just have to accept that this is just a reality. If we. And I'm not saying, like, keep in mind, these are some dangerous waters to swim in, but I feel like these conversations need to start taking place. Is that the worst that's going to be happening to you? Say we go into a hot war. Let's say we go into a hot war and now those fellas that have been sitting in the reserves, now you're being sent over. You're going to feel real discrimination because the opposition is going to try and kill you. And I get it. We're supposed to be on the same team here. I just find like military culture is always like, they have this very dark sense of humor. If you talk to a veteran, they are able to talk about some very, very dark subjects. And I'm talking like even fellas that have in their service been in a situation like Afghanistan can come back and discuss some of the most insane things with you. And these people have like endured something that we're not willing to do. We're not willing to do. What do we do? November 11th is next week. What are we all going to do? We've all put $2 into the Legion bucket, took a poppy, we put it on our lapel, and we walk around and pat ourselves on the back like we've done something for veterans, right? That's what we do. We as civilians, that's our way. And now instead of pride sidewalks, what do they do? They're doing the lest we forget. They're painting the sidewalks. Meanwhile, many veterans are just asking for like a little bit of help, whether it's financially to help with their mental health. They go through, some of them have lost limbs, like a friend, a friend of mine that went forward and asked Trudeau about veterans affairs. How are you going to help me? And he looks this man dead in the eyes and says, we simply do not have enough to give. But meanwhile, you go through this new budget and if you scroll down, there's hundreds of millions of dollars being allocated to gender rice fields in Vietnam. And we can't take those funds and allocate it. And I understand, like, once you get into the deep levels of politics, a lot of these shell corporations are propped up and like they funnel that money through it. These guys get richer and richer and richer by basically stealing the cash flow of the citizens and allocating it to their personal bank accounts or opening up companies. So that way they have a way to siphon this money over. And it's just scooping all that money over into their pockets and to leave the civilians with their hands, hat in hand asking, hey, do you mind helping me? I gave you 15 years of my life dedicated to the Canadian Armed Forces, and the best you can offer me is an injection to sell my organs. Wow, thank you so much. And I think like these things need to be brought up. I don't think an apology for racism right now is what most veterans are looking for. You're going to find a select few that are going to, come out and be like, yeah, bad things happened to me. But if we're looking at the majority of the concerns of veterans, and if you're paying attention to those that are veterans and are speaking out online, I think that their main concern doesn't revolve around that topic. So it just seems like counterintuitive to boost the morale of like not only the military personnel, but then motivating those that were thinking about possibly joining. And then you hear like many of these, I really wish I could remember her name, but she's a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces and is now speaking out against the MAIDS program. I should have wrote this down. I apologize, but she in an interview that I was listening to said that if she ran into anybody that was thinking about joining the army here or military here, she would advise them not to go in and do something else with your life. So that's where this is at, is that we won't take care of those that have sacrificed themselves. We won't do that. But then we get these, this grandstanding as if they care by saying, I apologize for racism. It just seems just so out of touch of what the concerns are of those that have actually served. Does it happen? I'm sure it does. And this is like where we get into asking ourselves is we see articles like this right here. Leaked Canadian military report shows many new recruits are quickly leaving. Attrition rate for new recruits more than double the average across forces. The Canadian military insists it's getting a handle on its recruiting crisis, but a new leaked internal report obtained by CBC News suggests many of those who come through the door quickly leave in frustration over the inability to get trained and into the job that they want. In addition, the effort to retain experienced soldiers, sailors, and aircrew was dealt an important blow recently when a Department of National Defense office set up to find ways to keep people was defunded. The struggle to recruit new members to both the regular and the reserve force has been a major preoccupation as the Canadian Armed Forces face a shortage up to 14,000 qualified personnel. But on the flip side of the equation, that has gotten less attention is the effort to hold on to people, especially in this critical technical trades, in critical technical trades. According to the evaluation obtained by CBC News, the military's biggest retention problem appears to be among those who just joined. And then that gets to where we are attributing, what is it, $81.8 billion in military spending. Okay? So right now, the new budget is stating that we are going to allocate $81.8 billion in military spending. It's the largest it's been in I think, in the history of Canada. And yet we don't have the personnel. So is recruiting, what does this look like? What does this look like? If the morale of the country and many of those don't want to sign up to, do you get to a point? Now, here's a conspiracy theory. Are we getting to a point where we're just pushing many of us into poverty? So that way the only option is to join the military. So that way you're able to, make ends meet. As we watch the job force, we're seeing cuts in the public and private sector all across North America. Does this push people then to just into positions of the military? Is that by design? Is that what their focus is? Because you got to ask yourself some of these the reasoning behind some of this. It would make sense if you think about it. If you're an impoverished person and the options are limited, where do you run to? Because many of the robots are taking our jobs. We're going to need people. You're going to need personnel. Always when there's an obligation to have a certain amount of beings in your military, according to NATO, and you have to allocate so much of your funding, and we have been underfunded for quite some time, and now even from this leaked document stating that many of those in positions to train these people are trying to get out. What is happening? Is the culture so twisted that nobody wants to be there? Because I talk, like, many of the guys that I've talked to that are active servicemen, there is a lot of complaining. There's a lot of sitting around. There's a lot of not much happening. And even that like, you can even take that down to like a policing level. I was just speaking with somebody who is an active police officer. And he was informing me that the schooling that they have isn't teaching them real life scenarios, and it's a position too that you can move up a rank fast, so that way it increases your pay. But it's kind of viewed as like you're a loser if you do that. You know, you're like, you get what I mean. I don't need to explain this to you. You know, there's like, it's an ass kisser position and an easy way to increase your pay. Now, will some people do it and just be like, well, shrug their shoulders, I don't give a shit? Yes. But from what he said, it attracts these people that should not be there, should not be teaching. They have no field experience, and they're trying to train these officers for field experience, meanwhile having none of that. So is that happening inside of the military as well? I would assume so. And now we're about to allocate $81.8 billion into our defense. It just seems like it just seems a way to basically launder money into the pockets of the wealthy. That's what it strikes me as. It just seems like it seems very disingenuous to the public. As we've watched now for the past decade, the morale of the country. First, let's get it. Let's bring up this I found interesting. First, let's get into this. Budget touts $81.8 billion defense investment as a sovereignty blueprint, but offers only rough fiscal sketches. Fiscal plan light on specifics on how and when the defense dollars will be spent. The Liberal government has set aside an additional $81.8 billion over 5 years to rearm the Canadian military, but the new federal budget only offers a vague big picture view on how the money will be spent over 5 years. It also does not spell out in precise detail the politically important pathway to meeting NATO's defense spending target of 5% of the gross domestic product. There is more money for recruiting, training, new equipment, defense infrastructure, and beefing up cyber defense capabilities in the fiscal plan tabled in the House of Commons on Tuesday. An additional $2.7 billion over and above the modernization cash has been set aside to support ongoing military operations in Latvia and the Middle East. Budget 2025 represents the largest defense investment in decades. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne said in his budget speech, we will meet our NATO 2% commitment this year, modernize NORAD, reinforce our Arctic defenses, and equip the brave women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces with the infrastructure and technology they need to safeguard our nation. Now, this is where I find it interesting. Champagne touted the new budget as a blueprint to defend our sovereignty, but given the lack of detail on how the historic investment will be spent, one expert suggests it might be better described as a rough sketch. See, I can only imagine those that have inside knowledge Are we going to see investments in a lot of these, these defense contractors like Lockheed and Martin, or, there's just plenty of them. But are we going to, is this going to improve the morale? Are you going to motivate, or do we just go into like, now you're being forced to serve 5 years in the Canadian military? Is that where we're going to go to? Does it go to that? Does it go to those great lengths? And I know, you're getting a little extreme here, but a blueprint to defend our sovereignty. That is what I wanted to zero in on, what Mr. Champagne has said. A blueprint to defend our sovereignty. I don't think it's a controversial thing to admit that Canada has drastically changed in the past decade, right? And what is this sovereignty that we're protecting? Because I don't think it's out of and keep in mind, I am by no means, I'm not well versed in the military. I see that though. I see those words popped out to me. Defend our sovereignty. The sovereignty of Canada, right? This country that we've all grown to love and we grew up in, and now I think we can admit in the past decade, it has changed drastically. There are many issues at hand. Canadian identity is one of them. We're witnessing, like it was stated earlier, record low numbers inside of our reserves for the military. Many aren't, jumping to the forefront. Does that have to do with is it a shift in the people that are here? And the people that are here, are they just, it is what it is. I feel like many are like that, but now we're coming into this new era where I think people are becoming a little more outspoken on how they think and feel, and this comes down to the ruling class. Their minds are being scrambled a little bit. We are seeing a shift. There's no doubt about it. And whether you want to say that it's immigration, economics, we have housing crisis, there's a drug epidemic that's taking place, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. There's many issues at hand. And I know we're discussing that. I'm just kind of straw manning my argument, I think, a little bit here, but the sovereignty, to defend the sovereignty of Canada, where many people feel that there's really not much left to protect. I mean, we can look at something like a corporate entity like Tim Hortons, who at one point was a staple in Canadian identity. And I don't think it's a good thing to, allow something like a corporation to dictate what Canadian identity looks like. Because look what happened. They have rotted themselves to the core, and their idea of bringing back a customer base that was very loyal at one point is a nostalgic cup to serve dog shit coffee in. That was their grandiose idea, to bring back the old customer base. These people aren't that slick. If we just put an old cop in front of their eyes, they might remember what we used to be. And that, I think, has done more damage to them, because now they're reminded of you used to be a staple. You used to be something that we would celebrate and we would parade around. And now the quality of the product has went down, similar to the quality of life of Canada. You can use Tim Hortons and describe exactly what this place looks like right now. And I don't mean to be such a doom and gloom asshole today. I apologize. I know we started positive by encouraging you to go out and try healthy alternatives to turn your life around. And I'm all for that. If it's getting whatever. But you can look at something like Tim Hortons And it's just a perfect visual representation of exactly what is taking place. These employment scams, essentially what they are, it's modern day slave labor. Even what the United Nations came out and stated that it was, with these LMI, these Lima fucking programs. So you have that on top of it, and then you're watching the product of what was once great quality. I'll admit, I was one of those people that would definitely pop through at Tim Hortons and grab a coffee quite often. But now you're seeing the corporate rot that found ways to cut corners, stuff more money into their pockets, rather than serving the public a product that they could be proud of. It was penny pinching along the lines to try and find, hey, we're going to serve you a pizza. I don't want a fucking drive-through pizza. Give me a coffee and a donut and a sandwich. You were good at 3 things. Now you're bad at 85 things. Well, we'll give them an ice cap. No, how about just... But that's what I mean. You want to spread yourself so thin. And when we look at something like the Canadian Armed Forces, is these silly antics that politicians and people in positions of power think that this is what the people want. It's not. Especially those in the industry or part of the Canadian Armed Forces. The last thing you want to hear is an apology for racism. It's like, I don't have a sleeping bag that's capable of withstanding -50 right now because you sent them all over to the Ukraine. We're sending our weapons over there. We're sending billions of dollars over there as well. Meanwhile, all our soldiers... What do they have? They have equipment that malfunctions. They don't have proper attire. They're not equipped for even like winter. A sleeping bag that can't. Then what was it? It was. Let me look this up. It was something. It was. Oh, God. I can't find it. Okay, here we go. It was right here. Canadian Army. This was September 13th, 2024, so last year. Canadian Army says new military sleeping bags not suitable for typical Canadian winter. The defense, despite the Defense Department spending more than $34.8 million on new sleeping bags, the Canadian Army asked late last year that hundreds of soldiers headed to a joint northern exercise in Alaska with the Americans be issued with old 1960s vintage bedrolls. Troops who had recently issued general purpose sleeping bags late last fall in a preparatory exercise found several critical issues, according to an internal briefing note obtained by CBC News. More than 350 soldiers belonging to the 3rd Battalion, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, deployed to Ram Falls Provincial Park west of Red Deer in late November last year, where they spent several days training for northern operations. Temperatures during the employment ranged from -5 to -20 at night. The critical issues discovered by soldiers related to lack of warmth with the new sleeping bags, said the briefing note written on December 5th, 2023. The general unsuitability of the new sleeping bag system had prompted the Department of National Defense to start looking to buy additional bedrolls that can be used in the far north during the training exercise. So we're using sleeping bags from the 1970s, for Christ's sakes. And now, like, hey, boys, congratulations. Carney's going to give you a brand new sleeping bag. I know I'm being very hypercritical about this government, but I just have no trust in them at all. And we'll move on to our next This is what I mean right here. Is like this is an Ontario NP. His name is Graham McGregor, who is a sitting MP in the provincial government of Ontario. Today we celebrate the birth of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. I don't know if I probably butchered that, whose teachings of equality, compassion, and selflessness. Now, we're going to listen to this, and we're going to probably see more of this in the near future of politicians like this guy right here.
वाहिगुरु जी के खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह सत श्री अकाल मेरा नाम Graham McGregor है Ontario's Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism and your MPP for Brampton North. Today we celebrate the birth of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, whose message of equality, compassion, and service continues to inspire millions around the world. His teachings remind us to live life with humility,
Look at him reading it.
to uplift others, and to see the divine in all. On this special day, may we carry forward his
Look at him reading
of
this.
spreading kindness and standing up for justice. Wishing you and your family a
Good
very
for
happy
you.
Gurpurab. Mere valo tono or tode pavarnu Gurpurab dia lak videnya.
How many times
Wahi
do you think that guy had to recite that to nail that? But that now, as soon as you heard him say, "I'm an MP of Brampton North," you knew where I was going with this. But this is the pandering that's going to be taking place over. Buckle up, it's going to get way worse. That's what I'm saying. I know, I'm not even, listen, I don't even want to make this a racial thing, but it's just the grotesque action of pandering to people so you can win a popularity contest. Obviously, we all know that the general demographic of Brampton is predominantly Punjabi, Hindu, Muslim, So these idiots right here are going to pander to that so they can just keep that juicy, nice little salary, all the benefits of sitting in the Ontario legislative building, and this is the product of that. These people will implement policies and pander as things. They're snakes in the grass. They are wolves in sheep's clothing, and I cannot fathom my anger and despise towards politicians now. And I'm not. And they're all the same. They're all the same. This is a conservative, okay? This guy is a conservative. And I don't want to sit here and act like I'm being a radical by any means, but this is what they'll do. These are the great lengths to pander to people that they'll go to. What again, this goes back to my question of like, what good does this, just to keep your juicy salary. You're doing whatever you possibly can. You know the end is near. That's the thing, is a guy like this knows the end is near because when there is a demographic shift and there's no point not, what are we not going to, we're going to turn a blind eye to it? Of course, we all know that Brampton is what it is and there's no avoiding it. There is no avoiding it. And you get these meek, weak individuals put in a position of power that will do anything to stay there. The idea that they even consider your general health, your well-being is absolutely insane. It's insane. This is a guy that if you could convince that guy to do blackface, you could convince him easily. That guy right there, you could easily convince to do blackface. Am I wrong? You just put a script up in front of him and be like, listen, this is going to be good for us, okay? Whatever team he has around him, whatever PR team, so that way the optics look good. And say we get to a time, let's go to a time where, maybe it's we go way into the future or deep in the past. And you could sit there and be like, listen, these minstrel plays are, they're They're really taking off right now, and I think that we should be the first to get to it. I think we should be the first ones, and I think that to really win over the demographic of this area that really enjoy those types of plays, they really enjoy them. I think that you should paint your face black and deliver a message to your constituents about how wonderful it is to sit there in a theater where everybody's shoe polished up. Yeah. It's not like we haven't had a leader do blackface before. In fact, there was just a councilman out in, I believe it was Victoria, who got popped for doing blackface back in the early 2000s. He dressed up like Ludacris or a rapper or something. You know what I mean? It's not out of the question that maybe he has done it. It's not out of the, we don't know. That's just allegedly, okay? That's allegedly. We don't know if he's done it or not. But never doubt it. Never doubt it. You could convince these guys that, look how easy. Anything for a vote. Just so I won't lose my position and power, I will do anything. I will sell my soul. And I'm not saying that is soul selling, but it is hilarious. White guys doing like Hindu fucking Janjit Singh over here. I don't know if any of you guys have stumbled across that guy, but that is something else. You got some white Hindu running around. It's insanity. It's insanity. You're just like, I look at that and I just think to myself, what was the purpose of this is trying to, connect with those that have kept you in your position, right? You want to connect with them as best as you possibly can. And pandering to them with their religious practices is the easiest way to win over your voting base. You can't, many of the honks have kind of abandoned Christianity. They've abandoned Catholicism. You're seeing the younger generation kind of pulling back towards it. I think you're going to see a major shift in the near future with that. I think that a lot of the youth have we've left this new generation coming up. They see this soullessness that many of us millennials have. Of like we bought into the lie. We bought into go to school, you get a good job, you have a good if you have a good education, you're gonna own a home. We bought into the lie. Just work hard and you'll get these things, right? And a lot of people, some of these degrees, you probably should have had a little bit of foresight to see, like maybe these absolutely diabolical and insane degree, like gender studies and whatever it is, you're kind of banking on some non-for-profit picking you up and maybe you garner a salary, or you get a salary from that, or you open up another one of these these institutions and hope to God that the federal government will allocate some of the funds to you so that way you can survive off of it. The smart ones do that, right? Because it's a never-ending money train at that point. But I think the youth are seeing the lie that was fed to me and fed to my parents, and it was passed down to me, and it was like, just go to school, you get a good job, just work hard. And I'm not saying like I'm not in a bad position, I'm not in a great position, I'm doing fine. Could it be better? I think tremendously better. Of course, everybody could be tremendously better, especially with the rising cost of living. But I truly believe that youth is looking for something a little more spiritual, something that satisfies the soul. And you're going to see, or you're already seeing a lot of them turn to like Christianity, Catholicism. They're going back to, the church. They're talking about God. They're out in the streets and they're debating it. And there is like a sense of security that comes with it. There is like a sense of meaning that comes with it, rather than being this individual just in a big world and trying to, they're starting to understand when you band together. You're seeing it right now. Like somewhere like Brampton is when something like you have religion to what's the word I'm looking for? Religion is like something that you can build a community around. You see it. You're seeing it spread all throughout Canada. Is a lot of the Sikhs and the Punjabis now, they stick to their community. They do business in their community, where this individualism is like, it doesn't last. We've tried it. I probably, like, from, what would you say? Probably like the 80s to about now, you've seen a decline. There were moments where you could potentially, like, I don't know, find a loophole in the system, or an opportunity arises that you can take advantage of, but it's all like, it's materialistic bullshit. And I think the youth are looking for more than that, because the future that they are promised is quite grim. The idea that you're going to have success and wealth is very, I think it's very, very limited. I think would be the proper way to describe it. It's very limited. There isn't, us as millennials, we're not passing down something great. We're struggling to fucking figure it out as well. And now we're learning, like, this I want to say almost like the culture that we came up in, where it's like, be an individual, be loud, be proud, be you, instead of promoting, like, you're seeing the death of, like, that's why, like, something like the martial arts gym and going back there, and I avoided it for so long, and I wish I wouldn't have, and would have stuck to it, because I probably would have avoided a lot of mistakes in my life just by being in a place like that, in an environment like that does possess a culture that requires a lot of discipline. If you want to get better at this, you have to show up consistently, similar to, like, stand-up, I guess. But it's also an art as well as stand-up. Jesus Christ. Anyways, but there's discipline that comes with it. There's fighting outside of the gym is not encouraged. It's like we're learning these skills so that way you can apply it in competition and in your performance in the octagon. And it's something that is built with community, where I think the youth you're gonna see, I think, a rise in a lot of things that the powers that be are trying to stifle. Like, a lot of kids are being radicalized. Is that due to the internet? Is it due to the environment that they're around? Is it due to the future that they're promised? It probably is a collective of all those things. But I think we're going to see a very swift and fast change once these young people start becoming my age. Because these guys these career politicians that have been in office for 30 years, 40 years, the Nancy Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers, they're going to start dying and retiring. You got fucking Glitch McConnell over there. These guys are going to have to start dying, and these positions are going to have to be filled. And hopefully it's with, some people that have some pride and dignity of their people, of their nation, of, the overall well-being of the folks that, you were put in that position to take care of. And hopefully we can see a rise of everybody thriving. I hope we can see that. I want to be alive to see a major shift, and I'm going to continue speaking about all these types of things that are taking place, or how I view the world, I guess. Whether it's negative or positive, it's just, these are things that I observe, and how I feel about the overall I guess I didn't get to our, you know what? We're gonna shut this down and head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/dangercat69, where we continue the conversation. Hope to see you over there. If patreon.com/dangercat69, your support is very appreciated. Catch us at a live show, dangercatshop.com for all the dates that were listed earlier. And we will see you next week, Thursday at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Or if not, catch you at a upcoming show. Good night, everybody.